Hey, this is another rookie tutorial, and it is about competitive partisans. Let us go. I'm just getting my right one here. And slideshow, there we go. Right, competitive partisans. This was requested as a continuation of my competitive rookie tutorials where I go through different nations and talk about how I view them from a competitive standpoint. This channel is all about competitiveness, right? In bold action. So I am going over them not in historical flavor, not in like one of the things that I would really like. Partisans is one of the armies I'm looking at maybe getting going forward. I'm looking at Finns and Partisans. They're basically what I want to do next. If I'm going to do anything next, my checks are almost done. Um, Partisans, I want to do them because you can do a lot more with paint, right? So they're a painter's army for me. But they also have some quite nice competitiveness and some competitive size that are really quite interesting. So let's go and see what they have. Right, competitive advantages, and this is an unusually long list actually, which makes it kind of weird that we haven't actually seen Partisans win any tournament yet. But we haven't. They have quite good, if very limited, infantry. There's basically like only two types of infantry available to Partisans, and there are like 4 or 5 different units that you can pick and choose from, and that is it. So it's really rather limited. But the infantry choices themselves are all of them fairly interesting. They have good access to anti-tank. They have both Fausts in late war units, and they have access to the bazooka as well. They have one or two rather nice theater selectors. I especially like the Marquis one from the D-Day book, um, where you can have some very interesting units and a very unusual army build, which I will get back to later on. And that is the very unusual army build I'm talking about there. And they have those bombs that you can place on the table, which can really, like, it gives you quite a lot of board control. Finally, they have access to captured tanks, which means that you can sort of gear your tank selection rather to where you want it to go, if you want a tank at all. And that's because you, of course, gain access to the rather excellent German tank choices, and there's a lot of them that are quite good. So, and unfortunately, it's a captured tank, which makes it unreliable. But that aside, it is still good tank choices that you can have. So there are a lot of competitive advantages. Why don't I already play Partisans? Well, there are some competitive disadvantages as well. They are very limited in their national special rules. They have those bombs, and that is basically it. And they have a very limited vehicle selection as well. The captured tanks, yes, good, but they really don't have an armored car, and their transport selection is basically down to a truck. And there are no special units. There are no engineers. There are no elite skirmishers. There's nothing of that sort in the choices that you can take for Partisans. So they become very, very mono-build in my eyes, and very limited. There's basically, for me, there's 2 builds that are really good with Partisans, and one of them is only a theater. So what are you going to do? You have a mono-build army here. That is what it is. The army builds. Well, you can try to make a mixed bag with Partisans. It is not especially good with Partisans because you're very limited in the range of choices that you have, and that is what you want to with a mixed bag. So it is not a mixed bag army that where I would suggest that this is something that can do well, but it can do it. You can also do the Death Star version. This one is truly a Death Star because for me that is most likely the most expensive single unit you can buy in the game that is not an extremely heavy tank. You can, with Partisans, you can buy veteran guerrillas and you can give them SMGs, all of them, and you can give them anti-tank grenades, and that means that with the 20-man unit, you can buy a unit for 360 points that can kill tanks quite easily, because 20 men hitting a tank, they will definitely destroy that tank. And if they get to close combat, they're all of them tough fighter because they have submachine guns. So they are going to wreck anything, including Gurkha units. Nothing can stand in the way of that Death Star. But, well, everything the enemy will have will shoot at you and give you pins. So you're never going to get anywhere. It's the true Death Star. It's really it's not very effective, but you can build the ultimate Death Star with Partisans. 20 guerrillas with submachine guns. Yeah. For me, where the Partisans shine is in the Horde armies. Maybe combined with the assault lists, and I'll get back to that. But they have a really good build for that. A really interesting build as well. The only thing that is really lacking for me there is somewhere to buy the actual models for it. Wargames Atlantic came out with a plastic partisan kit, but the only thing there is that the options for how to build your models are not exactly geared towards this particular build, which means that you can't actually get the models for this particular build. It becomes very difficult. You're going to have to kit bash, which is what I am going to do whenever I get around to building this. You can also build cavalry lists because the Partisans have access to cavalry, and this is not the bad Romanian, Bulgarian, East European cavalry. These guys can actually charge. So you can build cavalry for Partisans. I don't think you want to, but you can. And finally, you can build the most unusual army build that I've ever seen. It's the sniper spam. There is one selector, the marquee, where you can get snipers, and I will get back to those units in a minute. But you can have so many snipers. You have 2 sniper choices, and you can have snipers beyond that as well in your infantry units. That is wow, that is a strange army build, and it might actually be very good in certain restrictions, in certain settings, in certain tournaments. It might actually be good, maybe. I'm not sure. It could be. So that is very, very interesting. So the standout units for me are, and there's quite a lot, as you may be able to see here. You have the early war partisans, the regular pistoleros, I call them, because what you're doing is you're buying a huge early war unit of partisans. They can be up to 20 men, and you can buy them. You buy them regular, and then you downgrade them from their rifles to having pistols. That makes them an extremely effective close combat unit of regulars. A 20-man unit of that will cost you 140 points, and they have an efficiency level approximately where the Gurkhas are. They're really dangerous in close combat because they have so many bodies, right? And all of them tough fighter. So that is a terrifying unit to put on the table. You can buy this even cheaper. You can go inexperienced pistoleros and buy inexperienced partisans. Again, you can have them 20 men. You can downgrade them to having pistols, which I think you should. And this is my problem with Wargames Atlantic's excellent plastic kit, which I'm definitely going to get 2 or 3 off when I buy this this army. They don't have enough pistols for every one of their models, and I would want to have here At 80 points for a 20-man unit of inexperienced pistoleros, I would want at least 3 of those units. So that is 60 men with pistols. I am lacking pistol options in those plastic sets. Then we have the late war partisans. They don't have the pistolero option, but what you can do is you can build MSU lists with this, especially if you have multi-platoon, because they have access to Panzerfausts. So you can have 5-man units with Panzerfaust and rifles. These may be a good skirmish option for partisans, and they definitely are a good anti-tank option, because that means you have so many Panzerfausts in your units, and they're pretty cheap as well. Then there is, of course, the Guerrilla Death Star. I don't think you should ever do this. I accidentally put 320, but with the anti-tank grenades, that is 360. So don't buy this. It's stupid, but it is a possible unit, and it is a standout unit. The Partisan Cavalry, I also need to mention this. Cavalry is good in bold action, surprisingly good. It wasn't really good in real life, but it is surprisingly good in bold action, and you can buy quite effective cavalry lists for the partisans. Then there is, of course, the Marquis Marksman. My main issue here is there's like the rules are, to me, not exactly clear, because you can buy him as inexperienced. Does that mean that you're shooting with a -1 when it says that snipers always hit on a 3+? I don't know. So the rules are a little bit fuzzy, but it does mean that in every single one of your inexperienced units for the Marquis infantry units, you can have a sniper. This means that you can have 5, 6, 7 snipers in your army list, which is really cool when you're running that theater. And then, of course, the bazooka. The bazooka is a really, really strong anti-tank choice. It has a lot of range. It is a small team. It's very hard hitting, and you gain access to it with partisans. I love it. I love it. Finally, there's the captured tanks, and for those, I would go with something darker. So a flak Zwilling, flak Vierling, not Zwilling, Vierling truck, a Polizei tank, maybe the new Panzer III, something along that line. I would try and get a darker tank that could offend multiple types of units. So both light, soft-skinned vehicles, Stewards, light tanks, and then also infantry. So that would be my competitive partisans. I do hope someone builds a all pistolero list and does well with it, wins a tournament. That would be awesome. Right. Thank you so much, and goodbye again. Cheers.